Pastor Zach Mays here again as we continue on our explanation of the New Hampshire Confession of Faith. We find ourselves at article number 15 of Sabbath. So we're going to read it in its entirety, and then we'll break it down part by part with scriptural support of the article. So, Article 15 of the New Hampshire Confession of Faith of the Christian Sabbath. We believe that the first day of the week is the Lord's Day, or Christian Sabbath, and it is to be kept sacred to religious purposes. By abstaining from all secular, labor, and sinful recreations, by the devout observance of all the means of grace, both private and public, and by preparation for the rest of that remaineth for the people of God. So we believe, keeping the Lord's Day for Christian worship and abstaining from secular labor and sinful recreations is good practice, but it is not morally binding, meaning the Bible does not morally bind us in the new covenant to uphold the Christian Sabbath in the same way the Jews would in the Old Testament. However, we do understand that it is important that we participate in the Christian Sabbath and we understand its purpose and we delight in keeping this Sabbath holy and observing it for our good and for God's glory. So the first part says we believe that the first day of the week is the Lord's Day or Christian Sabbath. Acts 20 verse 7. Now on the first day of the week when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until midnight. And so it was a regular practice for the first century church, for the church of the New Testament, to meet on Sunday, the Lord's Day, to celebrate the resurrection of Christ, the day that he rose from the dead. That was the Sabbath day. It says, and is to be kept sacred to religious purposes. Romans 1:10 says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day, and I heard before me a loud voice as of a trumpet. That's Revelation 1:10, not Romans 1:10. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day, and I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet. That is John on the island of Patmos, as he is hearing a special revelation from the Lord that happened on the Lord's Day. Why? Because it was a day, even as he was exiled to the island, he was observing the Lord's Day, and God gave him a special revelation and understanding as he kept that day and time sacred for religious purposes. In the same way today, as we set apart that day and that time to gather and to worship on the Lord's Day, he does something in our hearts and our minds that brings us closer to him and gives us a deeper measure of grace and purpose and truly enjoying that which is life. And so it's important that we too keep this day sacred. It says by abstaining from all secular labor and sinful recreations. Isaiah 58:13-14. If you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and shall honor him, not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words. Then you shall delight yourself in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride on the hills of the earth, and feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father. The mouth of the Lord has spoken. Just a reminder that God desires that we gather and we worship and we keep this day for worship sacred and holy, and that there is a blessing that follows our life when we delight in that truth and reality. It continues on, by the devout observance of all the means of grace, both private first and then public. So the scripture verse that is talking about the private worship is Psalm 119:15. I will meditate on your precepts and contemplate your ways. That we're a people who are constantly having private communion, private worship, private seeking God. And public, Acts 11:26, when they found him, he brought him to Antioch. So it was that for a whole year they assembled with the church and taught a great many people, and the disciples were first called Christians in Antioch. Again, the public worship, private devotion, public devotion to Christ. God uses it all to keep us closer to him and doing things the way he's designed for it to be done in the church age. And by preparation for the rest that remaineth for the people of God. Hebrews 4:3-11. For we who have believed do enter that rest. And he said, so I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he has spoken in a certain place of the seventh day in this way. And God rested on the seventh day from all his works. And again, in this place, they shall not enter my rest. Since therefore it remains that some must enter it, and those to whom it was first preached did not enter because of disobedience. Again, he designates a certain day, saying in David, today, after such a long time as it has been said, today, if you will hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. For if Joshua had given them rest, then he would not afterward have spoken of another day. There remains therefore a rest for the people of God, for he who has entered his rest has himself also ceased from his works, as God did from his. Let us there be diligent to enter that rest, lest anyone fall according to the same example of disobedience. And I think that really sums up for us this idea of Sabbath rest, that God desires that we rest in him. That's what Sunday is. That's what the Lord's Day is. It's working hard 6 days. It's having 6 days to do vocation and recreation and other things outside of the church. But on that day, on the Sabbath day, we're now resting in the finished work of Christ. And in resting in the finished work of Christ, I could rest from all other vocation and recreation and things that I do, trusting that I've done enough and that God will sustain me and sustain those works, and he will do a work in my heart on the Lord's Day that will then compel me to continue to work all the days of my life for his glory, and ultimately it will be for my good. So it's a reminder to honor the Sabbath day, to keep it holy, and to honor the Lord in private and public worship on that day.